Welcome along for the ride. This is going to be a little longer than normal, I think, than my kind of typical ones. I also don't know where it's going yet, um, but I do have a backstory, and I will explain it while I'm driving. So I'm going to be driving for like the next hour, so we'll figure it out. This is going to get edited down. Don't worry. This is going to be an hour-long video. That would be crazy. I'm not going to subject people to hour-long videos yet. That's a threat, my friend. That's a threat. No, it's not. It's not really a threat. So yeah, where does this all begin? This all begins in 2021 during the lockdown. Technically, it begins way back in like 2018, 2019 when I realized that my personal issues and the way that my mental and emotional, I don't want to call them deficiencies, abnormalities, I don't know, that's not, non-typicalities, is that even a word? I love making up words, by the way, so if I make up words, I'm gonna fucking go for it. But like, I know that I'm not neurotypical anymore, if I ever was. And the way that that stuff manifests was becoming a problem. And it was a problem that was starting to affect the other people in my life around me, and it wasn't fair to them, right? Like, it's not fair to my spouse, it's not fair to my children, at the time child, but I felt like I was a good place coming out of the military, and I was for a while, and then things kind of started grinding down, and I don't know, it's been a long ride, long journey from there to like try and adjust and fix stuff. And the good news is I finally feel like it's getting under control. I posted a video a while back that was talking about this kind of stuff, about getting your self-help, and how there's no, like, if anyone thinks it's a sign of weakness that you need help and you need artificial chemicals to help make up for the ones that your brain doesn't want to or know how to or remember how to produce, fuck them. Do it anyway. But so I was just getting put on stuff from my general practitioner. When I was in the military, the last couple of years I was visiting a psychiatrist and a psychologist and doing therapy and on all kinds of stuff, and just trying to help because I was in a miserable place when I was in the Army. I was living in an apartment off post by myself, as a lower enlisted, which normally probably would never be able to happen except for the fact that I was technically married. So the Army paid me my BAH, which is a basic allowance for housing, to get an apartment and buy groceries basically every month. So what we did with it is, since my spouse lived in a different state and worked in a different state, we got me just a small apartment, and we used that money to buy me groceries and help pay on her student loans and just, little stuff like that. It was stuff that was important for our housing situation, if that makes any sense. Yeah. So I was in an apartment by myself. I hated it. Well, I didn't hate it. It was a good apartment. It was a good apartment complex. Would 100% recommend them. If you're ever at Fort Hood, or you're ever in the Fort Hood area, Copper Mountain was the name of the place. And they are expensive by a lot of military standards, but from where I came from, they were cheap, and they were like the best maintained, best quality apartments that I could find in the area that wasn't like renting someone's house. But but highly recommend them still. I spent 3 years there, so in 3 different apartments, so who cares? But the problem that I saw happening was that, like, I would go to work, I would come home, I would have what to my brain was a couple of miserable hours until I had to force myself to go to sleep, or else I wouldn't be able to wake up at 5 in the morning to go to BT. And it was just this endless cycle of drudgery that I didn't want any part of anymore. And it's not a slight on the military or anything, just I was in a different place. I wanted to go live with my wife. I had done my deployment. My loans were paid off at this point, and like I was ready to be done. So it was a rough place to be. Like I hated looking at the walls of the apartment. I hated feeling stuck there all the time. And this was about the time that, if you are familiar with me on a longer term basis and all of the weird stuff I've gotten up to, this is where I started doing stuff like, I think I had a food blog for a little while where I would travel around to different breweries and like wineries in Texas and drink the beer and shit like that, talk about the experience and whatnot. So basically, yes, I made an excuse every single weekend that I possibly could. Every day off that I possibly had, I spent in Austin, Texas, instead of Killeen, so like an hour to hour and a half away from my house / apartment, to do stuff to not be in my house. Now, I was fortunate for a couple of reasons back then. Reason number one being I had very, very good friends in Austin, Texas. Still do have many good friends in Austin, Texas. Some of those friends are now in Scotland, which is a very interesting situation and turn of everything. But yeah, there was a community that I fell in with. They've changed their name recently, but they were called the Council for the Magical Arts or something silly like that. Everyone just called them CMA. And the premise was that they were a broad pagan community, which basically non-Christian religions, non-Abrahamic religions usually fall under paganism. Usually Hinduism and Buddhism get their own declaration. It's a larger umbrella terms for a lot of small religious beliefs. And I don't mean small as in unimportant. I mean small as in there aren't a whole lot of people that ascribe to them. You don't have, half the population of India being part of your subsect of people who share your ethical and religious beliefs. But a lot of pagans do coalesce into larger groups. And this was one that was in Texas. They're now referred to as Spirit Haven, named after the 100-acre ranch that they own in, I believe it's Cistern, Texas, or adjacent to Cistern, Texas, out in the middle of nowhere. And let me tell you, the last year I was in the Army, like all of 2013, all of 2014, before I moved in March of 2014, I spent every single possible moment that I possibly could on Spirit Haven Ranch, working, spending time with friends, hanging out. Like, it was probably the highlight of my experience during my military career, was spending time with all of those pagans, working on the stuff there, building spaces that are now sacred to people, and a lot of other stuff that went along with the beliefs that I personally held around that period of time, which are very Northern European centric, Icelandic centric. I hate the terms for them because the terms are, I don't know, I feel like they pigeonhole a lot. Um, I would normally call it heathen, but I think the term heathen has a little bit been hijacked by a bunch of racist asshats. So I use it sparingly. There's the term asatru or asatru, depending on what pronunciation guide you abide by, which just basically means trust in the Aesir. So if you are familiar with Norse, Scandinavian mythology at all, the Aesir are the tribe of gods of which Odin and Thor belong to, along with Tyr and company. And there's many flavors of this. There's some the worst offenders. I will say this, and if someone's, I can't wait to get hate for this. If I get hate for this, the worst offenders are Odinists, which might as well be a monotheistic religion that claim to follow Odin and Odin's teachings, but are basically just a bunch of white supremacist asshats. And yeah, I want nothing to do with them and have nothing to do with them. Even though there have been times when I have been a very big fan of Odin. But here's the interesting thing about that I kind of want to touch on about this. I'll touch on a lot of this stuff down the road. People perceive pagan religions differently, right? There's different ways to look at it. There's different ways to filter it. There's different ways to interpret it. Some people believe there are real gods out there. Odin and Thor, actual gods, actual people. You can pray to them, stuff like that. You do things to, try to gain their favor. There are other groups in this that focus more on the ancestral side of things, which is, I was kind of among that group. And that's one of the groups that can very quickly go overboard into the you must be white, you must have Scandinavian blood to be able to follow this, religious path, because it is the ethnic path of the Northern European, and Northern Europeans are white, despite the fact that we have tons of anthropological and archaeological evidence that, not white people lived in Scandinavia just ridiculously fucking long time ago. But, don't let facts get in the way of your racism. So, can you tell I'm burned out by that in the heathen community, and that I kind of don't want to be a part of it anymore, and haven't wanted to be a part of it for a while? So I'm a little bitter, but that's, I think, a conversation for another day, to talk about that bitterness and where it has left me and all this stuff. But anyway, so starting in 2021 during the pandemic, I noticed I was getting bad again, mostly surrounding my daughter's virtual kindergarten that we were having to put her through. So she, due to coronavirus and lack of vaccination and being in Florida where people are extra stupid and refuse to do even the most remote, most minute things to, stave off a plague. Yeah, we kept her home her kindergarten year, and so I was the one that made sure she was in her like little Zoom meetings every morning that she had to attend throughout the day. I made sure she did all of her homework, and there was animosity. Animosity is a good word. She did not like doing homework with me. She did not like the way that I bossed her around and tried to force her to do things she didn't want to do. There are times where it would take her 3 hours to do her English homework because she didn't like writing, because writing is hard for her. And baby girl, if you're listening to this somewhere down the road, I apologize for being an asshole. I don't know what else to have done. You are at a point where and you still are right now as you're 8 years old, as I am talking about this, where there are certain things you find easy and there are certain things that are harder to do. And the things that you find easy, you love, and you do them all the time, and you want to do them every day, and you want to do so much of that stuff. In school, that's math and science. But when it comes to topics that you're not good at, that come a little bit harder, like language, reading, those things you avoid doing like the plague because they're, quote, too hard. And that is what it is. Everyone avoids things that are tough, because doing things that are tough is no fun. And we all just want to have fun at the end of the day. If we're being honest, if you were going to be honest, let's be honest right now. The bulk of our lives, we're trying to do something to be fun and to be happy for ourselves and as a part of ourselves. So yeah, like I can't blame you, but man, it was annoying, and I found myself losing my temper, and I found myself losing, I don't know, I found the elements of my PTSD as far as like being short-fused and having anger issues and stuff. It was starting to get out of hand. I almost found myself throwing stuff sometimes. Like, it was just, there were giant red flags for me. So I decided to start looking into stuff and trying to do something about it. And the thing that I eventually came into, I first wrote off as a joke. And there are friends of mine who can corroborate this. For some reason, Amazon started feeding me suggested books about modern Jediism and what they called force realism. Some people call force realism. And I was like, okay, I know there's a legit Jedi religion amongst the pagan community that has sprung up over the past 20 years. So, what's the deal with it? I might as well, this is obviously coming to me for a reason, because I've been searching around it, and so the algorithm is like, hey, here's the stuff that's related to what you're searching for that you might actually like. So I did that. At first, I wrote it off a little bit because it really, really felt like Buddhist appropriation. If I had to be 100% honest in my initial assessment of what Jediism is and was, it is a bunch of white people appropriating Buddhist philosophy and calling it something different. And that's not really a slight. I don't mean it as an insult, because that is kind of literally what Jedi were created to be and to do. If you go back and look at all of the stuff, the interviews with George Lucas and stuff like that, he intended for Jedi to be basically Buddhist monks with laser swords who traveled around and were like a portable like justice and mediation system, which, you know, it is what it is. But so yes, a lot of the stuff is actually appropriated from Buddhism, but I think once you get over kind of that little factoid, and understand that yes, it's to a degree it's appropriation, but it's appropriation within context. I think things start to open up more, and it's what made me eventually reach out to this place that I had found called the Temple of the Jedi Order, or Totjo, as people like to, or Tojo, as some people like to call it. And they stuck out to me because they were a registered religion, so they're a 501c3 or 3C or whatever. But they had a series of processes in place that like did some level of legitimate gatekeeping. Gatekeeping and religion are a combination that don't often mix very well together and lead to some major problems. But in this case, I felt it was good, like, because it's not, the gatekeeping didn't feel elitist. The gatekeeping was just a handful of small things, like you have to register an account with their forum. As part of that registration process, you basically have to dox yourself. So you have like your name, your address, etc., which it is what it is. But it means you have to be, people aren't just going to give out their personal information to everyone. Some people do, but I think for the most part, no one wants to give out their personal information when they don't have to. Like they just want to, hey, it's a forum. I want to sign up with my email address and a password. Let me go. And then they also have what is called an initiate program, where you go through like kind of a series of lessons and things, and it kind of establishes a foundation of the philosophy of Jediism through various other cultural religions and comparative religion, and the understanding that most religious belief, when you boil down to it, is pretty amazingly consistent across regions, like across land masses, across cultures. Like most of those core beliefs and ideas and morals exist everywhere. They're not beholden to any one like religion or any one belief structure. In fact, a lot of Buddhism borrows a significant chunk of their philosophy and belief when it comes to the soul and the different parts of what makes you and stuff like this, because they borrow a lot of that from Hinduism, because Bodhisattva, the original Buddha, was Hindu. He was Hindu. And he just achieved enlightenment, and people followed him. So it adopted some of the same concepts, like samsara and reincarnation and karma and all that stuff. Like that's all a part of Buddhist philosophy, because it's a part of Hinduism philosophy, because the first Buddha was Hindu. You see some of the similar stuff with Christianity, because the first Christians were Jews. So there's a lot of Jewish and Abrahamic stuff in Christianity. Not so much in, or at least my understanding, not so much in Islam. Though I'm actually curious about that. I've read a very, very little bit about the history of Islam. So I wonder if the people who eventually became followers of Muhammad were initially pagan in that area, or were they like Judaic? Were they, because it happened several hundred years after the Christians started up, not after they caught on and stuff, but it's an interesting question, interesting idea of like where do these things kind of stem from, and where do they borrow beliefs from. 2021, part of 2022, I went through the initiate program and I finished it, and I think it helped me a lot because it helped me be more aware of myself and how I'm feeling, when I'm feeling it, when things change. It's me being more self-observant, and that's what I wanted out of it, was me to be more self-observant, and me to understand the way I process feelings, and me to notice when something is off so that I can address what is off. Like these were the things in my head that I was trying to work on, and I definitely successfully found that with this weird pursuit of Jediism. And maybe I'll do a series of videos on this. I don't know. There's a lot to say or not say. After that, I started an apprenticeship because they all like to structure things after the movies. I roll my eyes. It depends on how you view that stuff. There is, when it comes to a religion like Jediism, there is a certain level to which you are going to be unable to escape the movies and books. Like they're just there. They're a part of it. They're the original inspiration. They're just going to be there. They're always going to be there. In fact, I only know one Jedi who basically knows nothing about Star Wars and is not a Star Wars fan, which makes me laugh. And they are really funny. One of my very good friends within the community. So I was an apprentice for a while and finished that apprenticeship in 2022. Graduated my apprenticeship. I have received an associate's degree in divinity from the Temple of the Jedi Order, and to go along with that associate's degree in divinity, I have been knighted by them. It carries it's nothing like being knighted in the UK or anything like that. It's just I have passed all of the qualifications for being a knight, and I need to train, and now I can train people and blah blah blah. I have mastered the basics. Now it is time to really learn, is kind of the way I look at it. I am Shodan, but it's going to be a long time before I am Nidan or Shidan or anything crazy like that. Aikido references. Yeah, we're definitely going to do some philosophy related stuff because I like talking about it, and it's interesting. It's an interesting set of things. And maybe it'll bring some people in, and I'm not sweating the whole YouTube thing. I don't entirely care about appeasing an algorithm and stuff like that. I just want to make stuff and share it with people, and hopefully they'll like it. I know the algorithm will help with that. Will help get it in front of eyes, but it is what it is. All right, so what the fuck am I doing today, and why am I in the car? I'm in the car because I'm driving to Jacksonville. No, I'm not going to see an AEW event. I wish I was. Kind of funny. But no. A gentleman who lives in that area ended up being the person who took over my apprenticeship when my first teaching mentor basically burned out of the Tot Joe organization and quit, and decided they didn't want anything to do with the politics of Tot Joe, or lack thereof. And we had talked about this, and I knew that this was going to happen going at some point. The original plan was that they were going to step down after I finished my apprenticeship, so that they could knight me, but that ended up happening. She got to a point where basically like she had to do something for herself for her own mental health, and I 1 billion% support that. And I was her biggest cheerleader in doing it. Let's just put it that way. Like, cool. For those of you that know me, I turned it into a lesson. I'm fucking hilarious, I know. And I wrote some good stuff for it. Yeah, it's funny. So anyway, so she stopped being my teaching mentor, and then there's about a few days of lag between me getting picked back up by this gentleman who lives in Jacksonville, who's a pagan in Jacksonville. So pagans, some more pagans. I collect pagans or something. So yeah, I figure since we've been talking online for months, and I'm theoretically moving to New Zealand sometime in the next year, that it would probably be a little rude of me not to just drive 90 minutes to Jacksonville to meet this dude, and hang out, grab some food or something together, you know, the usual. So that is what I am in the process of doing. I'm driving up to Jacksonville. I'm going to meet with him. We're going to talk. We're going to BS. Hopefully it'll be a good time. Hopefully it won't be too crazy. So yeah. I don't know what to talk about from here, other than maybe to include pictures of what I eat or whatever. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. Trucks, cars. Sorry, rest area. Yeah. All right. Let's get this done. I'm gonna stop this recording for now. Well, maybe we'll talk about it in a minute. Or I'll start a different topic. I don't know. I'll start a different topic probably. We'll see. We'll see. Cool. Thanks for hanging out. And there are friends of mine who can So yeah, so this is gonna be the like. I'll probably talk about some of this because it's interesting to talk about, and I'm fascinated by these topics and like talking about them. Ah, we fell over. Beautiful. Let's see. Am I still set back up? I'm set back up. That's crazy. It's gonna be a long video to edit. All right. So now that that's out of the way,